Hello everyone. So we are again back with the type of OS. We have already read and done the first type of OS, that is your batch processing OS. If you haven't seen that video, I'll attach the link of that video with this one so that you can go that and see that and then come back for the second type of OS, that is multiprogramming OS. So now before I start teaching you multiprogramming OS, I want you to learn some very important term that you will come through many times while learning OS. Okay, the first term is program, the second term is process. Okay, first we need to learn these two things. So what is a program? Since we all are from computer science or IT, we very well know what is a program. A program is a set of instruction that you give to the computer, okay, so that it will do some particular tasks. It is a set of instruction given to the computer. And what is a process? Okay, so when this set of instruction that is given to the computer or your program is executable, okay, it is executing, at that time this program is only known as process. This is the main difference between a program and a process. A program can have many processes in it. Okay, so program is a set of instruction that is given to the computer to perform some specific tasks, and a process is nothing but a program in an executable state. This is the first two things. This is a very important question also for your Viva, for your OS lab Viva. Okay, this is the first two term that you should know because you are learning OS, and the next two term that you are going to learn throughout this OS is, first one is preemptive and non-preemptive. Okay, let me say you that multiprogramming OS is nothing but a non-preemptive. Okay, so multiprogramming OS, remember, it is non-preemptive. Okay, so since you need to learn these two things throughout, so let me say you what is preemptive and what is non-preemptive. This is something that you will learn throughout. Okay, preemptive and non-preemptive. Now what is preemptive and non-preemptive? Okay, we all know what happens to the process. Suppose there is a process, what happens? The process is first in a ready state, that means it is ready to execute. Then it is given to the CPU. All these states will come along in a next classes. Okay, then it is given to the CPU for execution. Okay, so the CPU runs, CPU runs or executes one process at a time. Okay, so what happens? These process cannot terminate. The CPU cannot remove this process forcefully. If the CPU cannot remove this process forcefully before its termination, remember, before its termination, then it is known as non-preemption. Okay, the process, if the process wants to execute some input-output operation, then it can go, because without executing that operation, the process cannot perform the next task only. Okay, then it can go, but the CPU cannot forcefully make this process leave the CPU. Okay, before its termination. Before its termination means before its total completion. Before the process is completed totally, the process is completed its execution totally, the CPU cannot forcefully remove it. Okay, cannot forcefully remove it before its termination. Okay, that is known as non-preemptive. Cannot. Always remember how to remember between preemptive and non-preemptive. Non means cannot remove. Okay, cannot remove. Okay, and what is preemptive? Preemptive means the CPU can remove the process, okay, and then give this, then the CPU can be given to some other process by the OS. Okay, generally when is preemptive, this case happens if there is a higher priority process, or in case of time quantum. Okay, in case of time quantum. What do you mean by time quantum? Let me explain you that first. Okay, Time quantum means nothing. Suppose there are two processes. You have two processes. One is your process P1. One is a process P1, okay, and one is a process P2, okay. Suppose P1 needs 8 seconds to execute and P2 needs suppose 6 seconds to execute, okay, and the CPU has been given a time quantum of 3 seconds, okay. So what happens? P1 first comes to the CPU. It executes for, what is the time quantum of the CPU? 3 seconds. That means it will execute for how many seconds? 3 seconds. Okay. And then it has to leave the CPU. After 3 seconds, it has to leave the CPU. So till this time, how much time is left? 5 seconds or more left, because it totally needs 8 seconds to complete. So it is not completed yet. 5 seconds are still left for it to complete. Next, what happens? P2 gets the CPU. It is executed for 3 seconds, okay, and then after 3 seconds P2 again is removed from the CPU, okay, and again P1 gets the CPU and P1 again runs for 3 seconds, okay. Now again 2 seconds are left for P1. After 3 seconds again P1 leaves the CPU and P2 enters the CPU, okay. P2 enters the CPU again, okay. Now P2 has only 3 more seconds left, so P2 here gets completed. After executing the 3 seconds, it has completed, it terms in two times, it has completed its full execution, okay, in 2 times. But in case of P1, we see 2 seconds are still left for P1 to complete totally. So what happened? After P2 has completed its execution and it has been removed from the CPU, okay, P1 again enters and now it executes only for 2 seconds, though the time quantum is 3 seconds, but it just needs 2 more seconds to complete, so it is executed for 2 seconds. So this whole process, this whole this whole thing, this whole process where the process or this whole steps where the process can leave the CPU, okay, and then another process can enter the CPU, okay, this is known as preemptive. This generally happens if there is a process with higher priority than the process in the CPU. Then the process can be forcefully removed by the CPU, okay, forcefully removed by the OS, okay. And then there is one more thing. What is that one that I have showed you? Time quantum. If a particular time quantum is given for a CPU, okay, so a process will run till that time quantum and then it has to leave the CPU and then the next process will come to the CPU, will get the CPU and will execute for that particular amount of time. So this is preemptive, and non-preemptive is when you cannot forcefully remove a process from the CPU until its termination. But if the process wants to execute some input output device, that time you have no choice, but the process have to leave the CPU, okay. So multiprogram is nothing but multiprogram is non-preemptive, okay. So in multiprogramming OS, what happens? Basically there are many processes, okay. There are many processes, suppose P1, P2, P3, P4, there are many processes in the memory at the same time, okay. So when one process enters the CPU, suppose this process P1 is given to the CPU as I have told you, what happens in case of non-preemptive? This process cannot leave the CPU, it cannot leave the CPU before its termination, okay. But now the process in midway says that I cannot complete my execution totally if I don't read or get this data from the disks. So it requests for what? It gives an input output request, okay. So it gives an input output request. Only at that time this process is allowed to leave the CPU, okay. It goes and reads it, whatever data it is required from the disks, it does that. So in the meantime the CPU cannot sit idle. What does the OS do? The OS switches the next process, suppose P2, to the CPU, okay. Now P2 can do two things: either it can complete its execution and it can leave the CPU, okay, or even if this P2 wants some other data, okay, so it can also go to the waiting states and leave the CPU and do a input output request, okay. P2 can also do the same thing, Okay, but if P2 don't need any other data, if it don't want to go for an input output request, it can complete its execution and then leave. Okay, so when are the processes leaving the CPU? If they itself want to do some input output operation. Okay, at that time only the processes are leaving the CPU and another process is being allocated to the CPU. The OS allocates another process to the CPU, but the OS can never remove any process forcefully from the CPU in case of multiprogramming OS. Okay, that's why it is known as multiprogramming OS, and it is non-preemptive. Okay, so in the next video I am coming with the third type of OS, that is multitasking OS. So stay tuned everyone. Thank you.